huge. I mean, it's like a man. It's big.
Kane's son.
You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? Perfect organism.
Just tell me one thing, Burke. You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back, but to wipe them out.
That's the plan. You have my word on it.
All right, I'm in.
Let's rock!
Don't look back, dude! Run as fast as you can!
Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
Welcome to Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Prater, and I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Patrick Greene,
Andy Yeagerl,
Harry Chicos,
and my name is Ezekiel.
And today we are joined by our guests,
Micah Greene,
David Gogel,
and Mario Benvenuto.
Welcome to the show, everybody.
As
Thanks,
well as, of course, Xander in the house. Hanging out in the chat tonight. Xander, what's up? We just got to spend a lot of time together. This is kind of surreal to be on a call now because we almost all of us just saw each other in person. Actually, all of us did at different points in the last week, which is pretty amazing. And just before we kind of get rolling tonight, we were not going to read patrons because there's so much going on. I kind of pushed for it because this has been the most successful month we've ever had with Patreon, and you really deserve a shout out. So we're going to do it really quick. We're going to go back starting with Poop Vane, who I gave a shout out last time, but I'm doing it again. Eric Poop Vane Stevens. In the last month alone, we've had Carl Hinkst, David Hanbury, Brian Smith, Paul Sandel, Cameron S., Kaz and Zoe, Martin Yankov, RT21, Adam Zeller. I know that's you. Thank you. Christopher Bouquet, Andrew Campbell, Adam Dweck, and just a couple hours ago, Yunners. So thank you, everybody, for joining Patreon. We're so excited to have you. We have tons of stuff coming, so buckle up.
Yes, thank you. And today we are here with our formal review episode of Alien Romulus. Of course, everyone probably heard our very raw, very tired, very low energy, raw review of Romulus, which we are proud of, but we wanted to make sure that we came back with our full energy and to talk about what we love about the film and not sound so dire, because we are not as dire as that episode made us sound. So that's what we're here to do tonight.
Yes, we are. Now, just kind of going off that, what Jamie just said, the amount of write-ins, call-ins, comments on social media, comments on our website, I have never seen anything like this. I came on the show right after Covenant came out. I know Jamie had already been here for, a few years before that, but I can confidently say since I've been on Perfect Organism, it's never been, it's been crazy. We can't even keep up with the amount of correspondence coming in. All of you who called in to the show are going to get your audio played at the end of the episode, if you haven't already heard it in the beginning. And we're really looking forward to that because we want you to be featured on this as well, but also because, a major part of my continued interest in engaging on Alien Romulus has come from conversations I've had with so many of the people listening here and so many of the people on the call tonight, because this is a movie that's still fresh, but most of us on the call have seen it at least twice, if not 3 or 4 times or more at this point. So we really, we have the fresh opinion balanced out with a lot of conversation, sort of seeing where we land on some of the things that we had issues with, because, as Jamie said, we're proud that we did that live, raw episode. I think there's a lot of really valid stuff in there, but it was 2:30 in the morning, so we were pretty tired. So tonight we're going to re-engage that. We're going to talk about how we're feeling with it, where it's landing with us now. And I guess the floor's open.
I guess I'll break the seal, so to speak. It's definitely where I realized this is a good movie, and my first viewing, I was full of shit myself. A lot of stuff that bothered me and looked into. The second time, I just realized I was being too much of a Alien fan, if that makes any sense, to properly enjoy it. It's just a really good movie from front to back, even with its misgivings. This is the type of movie that the Alien franchise needed. I've been yelling at the wall, the hive walls, the face huggers, that this alien needs something, for lack of a better way of saying it, keep it simple, stupid, and that's exactly what Fide did. There's some depth in there. There's plenty of, sometimes too many, nods, but this is exactly what their franchise needed, and I think that the box office is speaking to that. It's a cliche, but it's a roller coaster. It's frightening that it's been 3 decades and there's stuff in this movie we haven't seen in forever, only in books and novels and the RPG. Fede really swung for the fences, didn't quite hit for the cycle on it, but everyone who I talk to that are just the regular goers absolutely enjoy it, and I feel the same way. The aesthetic, the sound, the costumes, the creatures, which for me is the most important part. The characters, even the forgettable ones, are good. The characters aren't stupid. It's, to me, it's really refreshing take, and this is exactly what the Alien needed to move forward.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think I'm the one who has seen it the most recent. I saw it today again, for the second time. I know some of you have seen it more. And I took my whole family this time. My younger daughter was kind of bummed that she missed out on the first viewing with us. So going into this one, I wanted to go with fresh eyes for myself, but also from her perspective. I was really curious. I sat next to her. I was like watching her watch it at some points. And unanimously, all 4 of us loved it so much better the second time, and she loved it her first viewing. The part that I was the most concerned about, which I know some of us have talked about, was that quote, that that "get away from her, you bitch" line. I looked at her and she had the biggest smile on her face. And I'm like, you know what, it works for me, it works for her, it works for me. So and that was her favorite scene, was that whole elevator sequence. We talked about it. She was scared in some parts. She was freaked out, as we all should be in an alien movie. But everything about it, I kind of just went along for the ride this time. And like, as you were saying, Dave, I kind of went in the first time as like an Alien fan, which, right, we sort of have that critical eye. And I think I liken it to, getting in like a cold pool the first time. It hits you in the face and you're like, this is awful. And then after being in it a while, you get used to it and you just really enjoy the experience. I will say, I saw it the first time in IMAX with you guys, the second time in Dolby. The audio was a little bit better. I was able to pick up on some things that I missed the first time, but I still think the sound mixing or some of the dialogue it's really a struggle to hear that first time. And I know my younger daughter was seeing it the first time. She missed out on a few things too. I had to kind of explain certain things. So that's still where I'm at in terms of just the audio of it all. I can't wait to watch it with closed caption to really get it all. But so much more positive the second time, I have to say.
I'll dive in after you, Andy. It's interesting that you brought up seeing it with your daughter, because I have seen it 2 times now. And the second time we decided to be brave and bring our 2 little guys. Jude is 10, about to be 11, literally tomorrow morning. And our littlest is Henry, who's 7. And I have to say, it was amazing to watch it that second time with them. They were both so into it. They were both so thrilled by it, and they were so engaged with it, especially Jude. We were worried that the end might be a little too much for them, being so little, but both of them wanted to stay and brave it out. So that was really, really cool to see. And I know Patrick had got a lot of joy from that. For me, the very first time I saw it, and continuing on to the second time I saw it, it was immediately engaging to me. From the title to the lack of sound at all in the beginning. I was just like, you know what? I am in. I think this is so exciting. And I am very much an Alien fan. I may not be on the same level as you guys, but I'm just a tier below that. So I did go into it with being an Alien fan, and I did come out of it that first viewing with pretty much the same gripes that most people I've spoken with have with it. And I know we're going to get right on into that later. But for now, let me just talk about the things that made me really excited. I'll start with Andy and Rain. Those two characters, I love them. I think they're excellent. I want to know everything about them. I thought they were well portrayed, especially Andy. I cannot wait to see if we get to see more of their story. But just the grounding of those characters, the lives that they showed us in the beginning, up until the point where they were getting on that ship and taking off to go do this mission that they started, I was all in on Andy and Rain. I love those two characters. I thought the artistry of the film was incredible. The sets, especially on Jackson Star, were phenomenal. Very immersive world building. The costuming was simultaneously original and practical for the world that they were living in, while being a great attribute to the films before. And the practical effects, of course, the face huggers that were really there, all of the suits that they made and the animatronics that they used, and just everything felt so real. I thought I'll end with saying that the bravery of the movie was really interesting, how they weren't afraid to go there, as far as making things absolutely horrific, especially in that final act when we get to see the offspring. Both times that I have seen it, the entire audience was taken aback by the first sort of full view of the offspring. And it was amazing to be in the audience, firstly, to have that reaction of just utter like horror and revulsion, and then second, to be a witness to that, knowing that it was coming. So for me, the movie is great with room for improvement, and I just can't wait to watch it again.
I really enjoyed the movie as well. There's so many good things that I liked about it. As far as just like the opening scene that was just like dead quiet, and then as soon as it goes in on the spaceship and you see the mother pop up on the screen on like the old style computer, and you're just like, okay, we're back in this, and it kind of just like tucked you back in to the older movies like right away compared to what we got with the prequels. Um, and it really did grab you from the beginning of the movie as you're going in, and um, even the things the fan service stuff that I liked in the movie with the little dippy bird in the beginning and the cornbread, seeing those kind of things, really like it's like a nice touch just in the beginning. The way they dealt with a lot of the aliens in the movie, I really enjoyed as well. Like when they originally got face hugged and they froze the tail to undo it and then rip that off. I thought that was super interesting, as well with the gravity scene as well, like getting the aliens to move. So it was really cool watching them do different things that we hadn't seen in movies before, as well with the new hibernation thing that was brand new. And it's just like we see the cocoon, like we saw the chest burster come out, and now we're like, okay, we know that thing's growing somewhere, and then we see these characters look on the wall, and you just see this like weird, not egg, just like puff like on the wall, and you know it's just like all like it has that same hive thing, but it has that seam in the middle where you know there's something gonna come out of it. Having a new stage to the life cycle was like a huge thing. So this movie brought a lot of brand new things that we haven't seen before, and then things from the novels, I feel like, as well. So overall, I really enjoyed the movie. The few gripes as well with the "get away from her, you bitch" line, I super cringed the first time I heard it. It was just like a hard thing, like why would you do that? But then the second time when I saw it with you guys and some of the theater cheered, I'm just like, maybe I'll just let that go a little bit. Maybe like some people could enjoy it. I know like the hardcore fans are probably gonna be like, why would you ever do this? Um, I would have loved to seen Andy say a dad joke after doing that. I thought that would have fit his character a lot more. Um, but yeah, no, overall the movie was such a wild ride. I would honestly probably put it as my third favorite in the franchise after seeing it 3 times. I know that's still new, but yeah, no, that's pretty much my overall summary so far.
I don't think we really touched on it, but myself, Jamie, Perry, we got to go to the LA premiere of the film. And well, that's a whole topic of itself, but like if I'm focusing just on the viewing experience, this was almost like a religious experience for me. There was so much going on, just the added layer of being there with the director, with the cast, with all of this crew that was, that worked on this film was what you could feel it in the air. I like the film was over and I felt like it was 45 minutes. It didn't feel like 2 hours at all. I tried to make a conscious, aware decision to be a blank slate, ignore all my wants and wishes and expectations for this film and try just absorb it for what it is. I absolutely loved it the first time I saw it, with all of the issues that were, well, expecting a perfect film, I knew from the beginning was unrealistic. There were a few, of course, questionable decisions, but overall, I just felt like it was an incredible roller coaster ride. I agree with you guys that David, so that said it was like exactly what the franchise needs at this point in time. The sets, of course, the film, it looks gorgeous. The opening sequence, when it started and it was silent, there was no music. That opening sequence with the probe ship, I wept during those. I think it was like 8 minutes. That was incredible. Very, very difficult to keep that going for a long time, but the opening sequence was absolutely brilliant. It was immediately back to to the original, to 1979. Are we going into spoilers or are we not?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So the most controversial thing that the Rook character, I liked. I took it as it's a I know it receives a lot of criticism. I just took it as a broken down, beat, acid spilled character, and I sort of accepted it. I actually felt like it was even though he was a villain in the film, for a moment there I felt like I'm with like an old friend sort of thing. Yeah, and last thing I wanted to just bring up, the whole issue with the costume that he wears. As much as I would love to say that that was my shirt that he wears, I don't think it was. I know that for sure they bought a few science officer sets for me, but I don't think that's what ended up on screen. So I got to be honest about that. But yeah, absolutely loved it.
I also just want to talk to the premiere too, because it was just such a magical experience to get to go with you and Jamie. And I just thank everybody here for allowing me the opportunity to go to that. It was beautiful. So much energy in the air and just so like when we were standing there taking pictures outside of the Chinese theater, like everyone was just so excited. Like I've never been to something like that before, and this has been talking about like I'm 34 years old, so this is I saw Covenant in the theater. I didn't see Prometheus, but like Romulus and the build up and the momentum and the things we've been talking about over the past year, like that was a lot. Like there was just so much building up to this, and it was just so captivating and it was just such a beautiful thing. To finally be there in person and then to be sitting in the crowd with Fede there, the actors there, Ridley Scott was there. That was just so cool. And when you walked into the theater, we got to like see costumes and props. They had that life-size statue of the Xeno. That was just so cool. Like everybody's taking pictures of everything. And so that just added so much to the viewing experience, right? It's just like how could you not love it after being there and experiencing it in that way? Adam, just like yourself, like I tried to go in with no reservations or just like a blank slate as well. And I think that helped a lot, especially after that first screening. Like we were so energized. Like I got to shake Fede's hand afterwards and just like I just told him like what a beautiful film it was because it was such a it is an awesome addition to the franchise for sure, hands down. And yeah, it was just like on cloud nine after that. Jamie and Adam too. You probably remember I was telling you guys like afterwards how like depressed I felt. I was like, oh, I like want more of that. Like once we had to leave the Chinese theater, I was like, I don't want to go. I was like holding on to the door handles. Um, and so yeah, that was just so great. And I do have to say it was like so awesome to get to meet Nick Stath and Dane Hallett and chat with them on their art direction for the film a little bit, like beforehand and afterwards we talked for a little bit as well. And those are definitely some of my like most favorite things about, or elements, I should say, about Romulus. Just like the set design is beautiful. Adam, you talk about the first 8 minutes of the film, like the ship, the miniature. Mario, you brought up like even like the mother popping up on the computer, just like in the style of what we'd see in Alien, kind of that cassette futurism. It's just gorgeous, and it just like really brings you back like a hug, like you said, and I really like fell in love with that opening sequence for sure, especially like all of the mystery around like what they're doing with the big chap, like cracking that meteor open. What are they testing? What are they doing, right? Like that I love that. I love when we're shown something with not too much explanation and then your brain you get to wonder about like what's happening, what's going. I think that's what builds up like such animosity towards the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, right? Like because in all the other films we don't really see much of them, and when we do see them, it's usually never good, so it's just yeah, it was just cool to see that added to that idea, right? Um and then yeah, I mean I love the characters were great. The acting, just like the pacing, everything, like once they got on the station, I mean it was just a wild ride, right? And I think one of the favorite scenes, Andy, you might agree with me on this too, but I really love that scene where Kay is like begging for her life on the other side of the door, and the Xenos behind her, and Tyler and Rain are like, this is when Andy's has the science officer chipping him, so he's not really doing what they want. He's not doing what's best for Rain, and they're begging for her life, and you're just like you're really there in that moment. Like that is by far one of my favorite scenes when we talk about acting. But yeah, just the practical effects on top of that, like everything you guys said, and I love too the acid floating scene when the gravity gets turned off and they're trying to float through the acid, like that scene, just so well done. But yeah, I really got to give it up to, I'm probably a little biased now that I got to talk to Dane and Nick, but I just got to give it up to them for like the set dressing and just the ideas they brought to building the background and just the monsters too, and what was I going to say? I thought it was really cool that Nick paid some homage to Aliens with the weapons room. He did a post on his Instagram, but that was just so cool. I'm just like, you really saw how much love Fede himself like put into wanting to make like a really fun movie for everybody in this day and age. And you could tell he handpicked a really awesome team to help him accomplish that. So that just hands down was really cool to see.
So Xander in the chat has a bunch to say. He says, this is by all means a soft reboot for the entire IP. And that's where a lot of these ideas of exposition dumps and repeating, some similar story beats come from. And he feels like Fede was kind of successful in that regard. He says, on the way back from the movie with Christian and me, Xander was talking about how Disney made the right move with this for the moment. He said, they can't remake Alien because of the backlash. They can't continue the prequels because they're so controversial, and they can't do anything with Sigourney because she's done with the character. So they needed to do something new with the IP, a new character to follow on new adventures in a similar setting to the originals. And, he points out this is basically why people are saying this is somewhat of a Force Awakens treatment, which I think is completely valid to say that. But Xander says, say what you will about Force Awakens, but it brought the series back to a familiar setting. And at the end, it gave us hope and optimism for the potential of a next installment. Now, Romulus did it so much better than The Force Awakens. And I have that same sense of optimism and potential with the sequel to be something new and fresh. So thank you for that, Xander. And to that, I want to put people for a moment in my headspace coming out of the first viewing of this movie, because I was on that car ride with Xander and Christian, and I was miserable. I was angry. I was dejected. I was very worked up by it, and I've had to process what that's all about. And I've been doing a lot of that lately. But that first night, that recording sounds the way it does, partly because we were tired, but also because we were really upset about a lot of things. And I think because we were upset together, it was sort of amplifying that somewhat. Now, I'm not saying that those things aren't valid. Those are actually still the exact same complaints that I have with the movie. And I still have plenty of complaints with this thing because there's things to complain about. That's fine. It's just, I think because our expectations are so incredibly high for this, as we've all been alluding to, and because our lives are so defined. I mean, I'm broadcasting this from a room that doesn't have any space in it because it's all alien shit. We are so obsessed with this all the time that to get out of our own way a little bit is a big deal. To Andy's point about to get away from her, so that for me ruined the movie the first time. That I saw that and I was like, that is an unforgivable thing to be in this movie. Yeah, you're mouthing same. I see you. Yeah, I felt like fuck it, I can't. And so by the time that The Offspring came about, I was like, okay, finally, I'm kind of scared, but I'm also so mad. I don't even want to look at this stupid thing. I was just so mad about that line. And then the amount of people who have told me that that's their favorite part in the movie, I mean, I can't even count on two hands. I have gotten so many texts from people just today. I knew at least three people who saw it today, people who took their kids to it, for example, old friends from grad school who saw it, who were like, hey, this got us into Alien. Where can we start with the podcast? Blah, blah, blah. And so many people are like, when Andy says, get away from her, you bitch, I cheered. And I was like, what? My sister said that. My sister, who grew up watching Alien with me, being obsessed with it, she was like, that was our favorite part of the whole thing. So all this is to say, I still think it's terrible. I wish that it were not in the movie, but I am realizing that I am not the only audience for this thing, and that I'm probably a hyper minority of the audience for this. And that's not a complaint about the movie. I don't think movies should always be explicitly made for the most hardcore fans, because I think our expectations are very different from general audiences to a way that could kind of be detrimental to the film. So I have been processing it. So that first night, okay, we get back, we do this recording. I'm so fucking mad. I'm falling asleep while we're recording it. And then I go downstairs to go to bed and I can't fall asleep. And I was up the entire night. I went to New York after an all-nighter. I could not fall asleep. I was just sitting there. My mind was just going and going and going. And I was so fucking mad. And then I woke up and my phone, because as you all know, had been off all night because I didn't want to get any spoilers from all the people who were seeing it. So I didn't have my messages open. I didn't have Messenger. I was logged out of everything. And in the morning, I logged in and my phone was just flooded with people pointing out all these things that I had missed because I had been so pissed off about it. And so then for 2 hours in the morning before I even left our bedroom, I was just responding to people who had seen the movie. And I was like, did I really? I don't know. And I was like, I clearly was looking like I was the only person in the world who matters. And I'm not. And I need to remember that for the next time so I can try to see it from something more slightly objective than I was just already seeing it from. So then we go to New York, right? and it's incredible. And we're all hanging out. I got to see Gogel for the first time in forever. We're all having this just a blast. Got to see Mario. It was just amazing. Adam, it was incredible. And we were having this blast. We went to PJ Clark's. Everybody was having fun. We go to the movie and we sit down, and just the vibe in that theater was like what I had been missing. It was a completely packed house. It was like one of the premier IMAX screens in the country. It was at the AMC in Lincoln Square, just this huge screen. And the way that like the audience was engaged with the movie was so different. And because I already knew the things that pissed me off, I was like, I'm not going to think about it. I'm just not going to worry about those things. They're going to be there. They're not going to just have edited the movie differently overnight. So it's going to be there. So like, let's see what else is in this movie. And I remember the first thing I did was I turned to Jamie and Gogol, who were right next to me, and I was like, "Oh, I fucking love it now!" And I had this really amazing moment where I was like, "Whoa, I really like this movie." And it was such a release for me, that feeling of oh, maybe there are things in this that I do love, and maybe I can kind of come around on it. So then we had this whole wonderful night. We had this great time. All weekend long, I'm talking with people about this fucking thing. Everybody's going and seeing it. We're having these amazing conversations. I can finally have my messenger logged in again, and I'm just responding to people and blah, 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 having these amazing talks with Alex White. It's just incredible conversations with people. And then the kids say, we want to see it now. So we go back and we, like Micah was saying, we took them and we had an amazing time. And just today, both of the kids were crafting things related to Alien with Lego, because they had such a great time at the movie. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm sold on it. That being said, there's critical issues with this film. My enthusiasm does not change that. I also see them more for what they actually are now, because I see them less as personal offenses and more as like actual, I think, issues with the screenplay and with some of the decisions that they made. What has been so interesting to me is that those seem to be universal. I mean, like when we did that review, the amount of people who said I had the same principal issues with it. Like, why is there an airlock sequence at the end? Why is it Rain being the last girl, like the final girl? All these things we kind of saw coming. Why is Rook this horrible AI monstrosity with his face when like there was no need to do that, because they had a puppet and it was a different character originally, and they had a whole screenplay with a different character. It would have been great. Why did they change it to that? And it was so distracting. And everybody has said that. Even the people who love the movie, who are casual fans, are like, why did they do that with like the Ian Holm thing? Like, why, it's kind of a tone deaf, I think, thing to do. So that's been interesting. People have the same issues that I feel like I've had with it, but they've also had the same praises for the film. And among those praises, number one, among every single person I have talked to, has been David Johnson playing Andy. I think Andy is a fucking iconic character. And I think Andy, for me, formed the moral arc that I needed this film to have. It made the movie about something instead of just being a fan film, which it kind of felt like the first time. I was like, I'm going to watch this with Andy now. I'm going to like experience, not Andy Geek Girl, although I did get to watch it with you too, but with the character Andy. And I'm going to experience this along with him. And going on his journey to the dark and back really felt very powerful to me that second and third time. And now I think about it all the time. I mean, Andy is like a huge part of my conception of what Alien is. And for a new movie to come out and add that to my personal headcanon is a really rare achievement. So yeah, my journey has been long and strange, and it's still evolving. There's still things people are bringing up where I get all mad about it. I'm like, oh, this is Easter egg. I'm like Easter eggs. And then I'm like, oh, okay, it's okay. Maybe I should calm down. So it's evolving.
Well, much like Perry talked about, I went to the premiere in Hollywood at the Chinese Theater with Perry and Adam and a friend of Adam's, Steve. And it was an amazing experience just to be there, like Perry was saying, with the people who made the film, but just essentially the Hollywood elite. And there were stars like David Dastmalchian and other people there just kind of hanging out in the hallways talking. It was very surreal and an amazing experience. A dream come true. And I've said this to you guys personally, but just I remember watching Aliens every day after school when I was in high school, and I was tutored. And that I attribute not only these movies saving my life as a child, but the character of Ellen Ripley saving my life. Seriously, these movies are important to me. And these movies have always been very elevated. They're starting off with Alien, like this kind of B-level haunted house, but they elevated it to something intellectual and atmospheric and something we hadn't seen before. So having all of that history and bringing that into the screening was just, it was an amazing thing. It was just a surreal thing that I will never, ever, ever forget. and I was with Perry and Andy and Adam, and it was just fantastic. Most of the time I spent with just Perry. We sat pretty close to the screen. It was just, and to Perry's point, we spoke with Dane and Nick. Dane I've been friends with for a few years now, but I'd never met Nick in person, neither had Perry. It was just really, really great to meet these people and be a part of the Hollywood machine a little bit, just for a moment, and to be invited to that, to have that studio see us as a show for who we are. It was an amazing thing. Now to get to the movie, honestly, and Adam said this to me after the first screening, I was bummed out. Like my heart was in my stomach. I was not happy at all. But I didn't hate it. I didn't hate what I saw. I'm not someone who hates anything. Even usually I don't like things. Things that I hate have nothing, like movies that I don't like, maybe I don't like them. I don't hate anything. I didn't hate anything that I saw in the film. Things bummed me out. I was disappointed, but I also didn't have any expectation except for to enter this screening and watch this film hoping for the best. I don't have expectations when I watch films. I don't. I hope to love them like I hope to love everybody that I meet. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes that's possible. So I saw it, the second screening I saw with Patrick and all of you guys, of course, and that was great. And I remember, so when the film opens, the Fox fanfare, it holds that last note like Alien 3, which was one of my favorite moments in the score. And I looked right over at Patrick and Christian because that was their first time seeing it. And I just see the joy in your faces. And I'm like, yes, like it was wonderful. It was just a wonderful moment. There are so much, and I said this for my first personal review on my Facebook page, 80% of this movie I absolutely adore. I absolutely adore. But there's 20% of this movie that absolutely bummed me out. And it's still the case. I am at where I'm at with this film in terms of like, that's just where I'm at with the film. I can't like just keep going and then, oh, I love it. Like, I'm just not that kind of guy. I love what I love of it, and I don't like what I don't like of it. But what I am excited about is, to everyone's point, certainly to Xander's, if this movie brings more people aboard Alien, I'm all for it. This movie gets more people in the seats. If this movie is successful enough for a sequel, I'm all for it. That doesn't mean those issues melt away, and I will talk about those issues as we continue to go along. But for me, the anchor of this film, to Patrick's point and to everyone's point, is Andy. Andy saved this film. Andy is the heart and soul and intellectual heart of this film. There's so much going on. I mean, I've had people say to me, and I think to others, they're like, well, it was interesting that the only character that was subservient in an android was a black character. I thought, hey, that's an interesting way to look at it. As someone of color, I didn't really think about that, but I was like, yeah, that's an interesting idea to play with. It seemed intentional, actually, based on some things that Fede had said, that he wanted to really position Andy as a character that was mistreated, essentially, for who he was. And but again, to David Johnson's performance, I mean, I'm thinking about his performance every moment of the day since I've seen this film 3 times now. Every moment of the day, I'm thinking about this performance and how much it resonates with me, and how much this character, who is an android, speaks to me personally. It's a joy. It's what will bring me back to this film over and over and over. And Romulus is a very rewatchable film. I'm excited about watching it again. But I have to say, I'm not going to let it off the hook either. I think Rook was an interesting character. We didn't need to see very much of him. We saw him shit tons. Then he just dumped exposition. And I think a lot of the mystery of Alien that I love was just lost. Romulus is not an elevated experience. Romulus is a much lower experience of the Alien series. It's an entry-level experience into the elevated levels, which is Aliens, and Alien 3. But that's okay too. It's okay. Not everything's going to be that way. Not everything. I mean, and Fede said this thing to us when we interviewed him. He was like, and I know Patrick has a bit of a different explanation. That's not how I interpret what Fede says, but Fede was like, if you you love it, I hope you love it. If you hate it, I hope you hate it. And he was like, I don't like this kind of in between things. But the reality is, life is not binary. Life is not binary. There are things I love about Prometheus and things I don't love about Prometheus, like passionately, vehemently do not love. There are things that I absolutely love about Romulus, and there are things that I absolutely loathe about Romulus. Things that I felt like dumbed down Alien for a little bit. But again, that's okay. And I'm not here to harp on those things, but I am here to make sure, like, at least for myself, that I just can't like close my eyes and roll my eyes in the back of my head and say, oh, it's great, it's great. Parts of it wasn't. And I'm going to always talk about those things in hopes that what we see next is something very different. It's something really from the heart of Fede, because I also know that with Romulus, Fede was talking to Ridley Scott quite a bit and James Cameron. There are lots of ideas. And James Cameron, or Ridley Scott was an executive producer, and executive producers have power. When executive producers say, we think this, we're going to go with this, we would usually the directors say, okay, they have to take those notes and run with it. In fact, Fede Alvarez had said the idea for Rook being Ian Holm was Ridley Scott's idea, which I think was interesting, and I know we'll talk about that more. So I'm going to wrap this up with my very complicated feelings about this film, but also an overwhelming sense of joy that I have a character that I can continue to invest in and celebrate, and with everyone here, and we are immersed in Alien in a way that we've only seen since Alien. That is a high mark, and I've not seen it before. There's so much love and care that has gone into this film. I have no doubts, even in some of the things that I really don't like at all, love and care was put into those things, and I can only appreciate that. So I'm excited to continue to talk about this.
Hey everybody, I would just love to read what Xander threw in the chat about Andy, just talking about how amazing that character is. And also, real quick, because I forgot to say it when I hopped in talking about the LA premiere, I just want to say, Mario, Gogel, it's awesome to meet you guys in person. And like, it was so much fun to hang out with you in New York City. And
absolutely.
yes, yes. Such a good time. And Xander, to you as well, man. Like I felt like we got a lot of good time, especially when we were walking around the streets of Manhattan. And that was just yeah, I will always remember that moment. And so Xander has a really, really cool just story of how he's connected with the Andy character himself. And I just think it's so powerful. And I think everyone should see how this character delivers on so many levels and connects with so many different people. So without further ado, Xander said, I connected with Andy in multiple ways. As some listeners might know, I have a few disabilities, mainly mild cerebral palsy and autism. I tend to project onto synthetic replicant characters because they tend to be an allegory for minorities. The dynamic between Rain and Andy in the beginning and towards the end mirrors that of the dynamic between me and my older sister. She's very protective of me and helped me a lot with social cues growing up. Even helped me with bullies. I felt like anyone with a close sibling could project onto that like I do. Also, the lack of social cues and awareness that Andy has reminded me of myself, especially the hesitation, the shuddering when talking, and struggling with facial expressions. Again, this is just me projecting onto the character. Because Xander, we know that you also connected with Bishop in a similar way, but with Andy, it was amplified. Synthetics tend to have to roll with the punches when it comes to discrimination. They can't react because that would just make it worse. And so I think that's why I dislike Bjorn, because I've encountered people who were hostile towards me in a very similar way. And Xander also says the fantastic writer, as we all know, Alex White, pointed out that Andy's model is actually ND255. You kind of get a glimpse of it when Rain is sort of resetting him and pops his chip out. But that could be interpreted standing for neurodivergent. So that's just like something that's really cool. And Xander, thank you for sharing that with us. That's just so awesome. And again, just a testament to how wonderful Andy's character really is, and to David Johnson for interpreting it in his own way and giving us what we ultimately got.
I think like it's like everyone's saying, Andy is almost everyone's favorite character, and it's funny because he is the one who says the line that probably all of us wish wasn't in the movie, and still all of us are just like, oh yeah, Andy, that's the guy. When I before I even was in the theater, I'm like driving over. It didn't even like hit me like the hype until like I was obviously I was excited for this movie for the last like 2 years, but like didn't hit me till I was like in the car and I was driving. And I'm like, this is finally it. And then I was like, I hope everyone dies in this movie and the alien finally wins one. And then about 30 minutes into the movie where you're really starting to like meet Andy and stuff like that. Now it as soon as like Bjorn's telling him, oh, you're not going to the planet with us. Then you're getting shut down as soon as you're on the way there. And then he just kind of looks confused and he's like, well, whatever is best for Rain is for me. And then I'm like, well, I hope Andy makes it out of this movie alive. Like, so I finally like it switched my thing to I hope he makes it out of there. But I just think it's funny. Like he, I wouldn't even know how to play a like a deteriorating android, and he played it so well when he's like the way he's like kind of scanning and trying to learn his surroundings like slowly. He just pulled off playing that character so well.
And at the same time, once he got that upgrade, completely switched and sold it like fantastically, especially that scene where he holds the door and just looks at Bjorn, just that look, he absolutely sold it. It was terrifying in that moment. When I didn't know what to expect. Another thing I wanted to touch on is that excluding the premiere, which was a unique experience in and of itself, I watched it in the theaters so far 3 times, and every single time the crowd like went nuts, especially at the get away from you bitch scene. And also throughout the film, people were physically reacting to dangers, to calling out, shouting, crying out loud. The reveal of the offspring, every single time, the entire audience was completely silent and went together. That was incredible. Once I experienced that a few times, I knew that this is really the way, as Patrick you mentioned, this is the way to bring in a new audience to this film series. I don't like to say franchise or film series, but this is the way to bring on board a new audience. I want more people to love this film and then go and check out. Not I had someone say to me, "Oh yeah, I need to check out the older films, Prometheus and Covenant." And I'm like, there's something even before that's even better, Alien and Aliens. Check it out. I swear to God, that was the conversation. And I'm just so happy that this brings on board a new audience, new blood, and I think that's what I think that he was absolutely thinking about when making decisions for this film, and that's important. That's really important.
One thing I wanted to bring up before is the amount of homage that is paid to Alien Isolation, which I think is absolutely incredible. Patrick and I have played through the game multiple times now, and each time we are completely floored by how incredible the world of Alien Isolation is, and how we get to live in Amanda Ripley's shoes for a while, and how we get to walk in the world where aliens and xenomorphs and synthetics that are terrifying exist. And there's so many little things in the movie, from pieces of the set to phrases to actions of synthetics, that just kind of give you that feel of Alien Isolation. And it's just so exciting. It's so exciting because like going back to what you guys were saying, bringing more people into the fandom, into loving the series, it's like, it's so cool because some people don't play video games and they don't get to experience that joy from that media. And now with this movie, they get a little bit of a glimpse of that world, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, to piggyback on what you guys said, it's the Alien Isolation stuff was great. Like there's a scene when Andy and Rain are walking down that escalator. I'm like, this is Alien Isolation. This is great. The sound of the grates. I'm like, oh man. I think even this movie is doing so well and so popular that people are downloading and buying the game again. It's crazy. When's the last time an Alien movie did that? And I know Jamie, I know you said it's a kind of a basic entry level, gateway Alien movie. Alex, it's not a bad thing because this is the really since Aliens, it's been 30 years since a movie generated this much excitement, and it needs to be like you just said, Adam. The masses need to get face hugged by this movie series again. It's time. And it was people were tense, scared. Like just about all of us said, the parts where we all rolled our eyes. This dialogue. In home, even though they were mad at it, it's still the general populace, liked it. And especially the offspring part, I was like, oh God, not again. And I'm like, I could already hear people in fandom getting mad online about this. I'm like, God damn it. But then when you see it with a group of people, and then it appears for the first time, and the whole theater goes, I'm like, okay, all right. Like you said, Patrick, we're that small, tiny, loud, we're necessary because we keep we help spread the love, but the stuff we complain about is just not there for the general audience. And like you, Patrick, the stuff I went to hating, I kind of liked a bit more the second time. The movie still has its problems, like all those callbacks. I'm like, could we not have it every scene? And the Ian Holmes stuff, like Jamie, you said, there's really no need for it. There was just unnecessary. But the rest of the movie is so good. Not that I don't care. I can push it aside a little bit. But there's just so much to love.
So just going back to I agree with you on all the editing choices or the lack of editing choices for sure. But going back to taking in new audiences. So today, my older daughter invited her two friends, or her friend and her sister, both like 15, 16. And I made them watch Aliens. I was like, I know they've seen Alien. They need to watch Aliens because I wasn't going to have their first time hearing that line be from Andy and not Ripley. But and so they loved both. They came out and we asked them, I wanted to know their, honest opinion before having it be colored by mine. They were like tense throughout. They were legitimately scared at times and they loved it. So I do think it's calling to a new audience. And we kind of have to let that happen, right? We have to sort of let our we don't have to, but to me, I'm going to let some of those critiques go because I know it is engaging a new audience. As far as the fear factor, my younger daughter said the offspring reminded her of Vecna from Stranger Things, which is her absolute most terrifying. She doesn't even say his name. She's like, he who shall not be named. But and the part where Andy is rebooting and his eyes roll back, she said also reminded it, when they get like possessed. And she now wants to go back and watch that because she liked feeling, she even said, I liked the feeling of being scared. And I think I can watch that now because she never finished season 4 of Stranger Things. So there is that visceral fear, but it wasn't so much where it completely like is giving her nightmares. But I think she liked that roller coaster ride of feeling that fear. And then my third point, going back to the acting. I know David deserves nothing but for praise. I think his best acting is when he's not saying a word. There are moments when the camera is on his face and the expressions he makes are like heartbreaking. And I gotta give it up to Kaylee as well with Rain. You could tell the love that she feels for that character and how she interacts with him and how horrible she felt knowing she was going to leave him behind. I just think the relationship was beautiful. I got to give it up to Tyler as well, because my favorite scene, as you were talking about Perry, the Kay's escape and she's on the other side of the door, he sells it for me. And then there's a moment, and I noticed more in the second time when she's taken, right? There, Rain is screaming at Andy, "Why'd you do that?" And Tyler is just utterly deflated. Like he doesn't even know what to do. He's just kind of like all concern for his own safety just goes out the window. And it doesn't come back until he hears her voice again with the hive. Right. And then he goes out with like a blaze of glory. And I just thought he did such a good job. I wish we could know him more because I thought he was a really interesting character, especially on the second viewing. I really felt for him and I could feel his pain and the guilt he felt, right? He basically said, "This is my fault that we're up here." I wish we got a little bit more. I've said this to you guys, right? I would take 5 more minutes on Jackson Star. I think it was such an interesting world. You could feel their desperation of not wanting to be stuck in the mines. I don't know, 2 more minutes of just like seeing that. And lastly, I loved the sequence where Rain is dreaming of the sunset, the sunrise. I just thought that was beautifully shot. I thought the camera loved her face. And it was really, the whole thing is beautiful. And when that station is crashing in to the rings, that was like movie magic for me. I loved it.
I'd like to jump in just with one more thing. As now that I have my moment here and we're doing this reaction episode. And I hope I'm not beating a dead horse, and I hope a lot of people don't roll their eyes, but they're probably going to roll their eyes. I just want to help people understand why the things that disgruntled us about Romulus disgruntled us a bit. And if you're like in the age range where this is your first Alien film or your first one was Prometheus and Covenant, like these are definitely probably not going to ring as true for you rather than if you grew up watching the OG like Alien from the 70s, Aliens from Cameron in the 80s, and then Alien 3 from David Fincher. Like those films are regarded as like masterclass, right? Like that's why we hold them to such high regard. And so I just hope people are like taking that into consideration when they are listening to the things that we don't like about Romulus or the things that took us out of it a little bit. Because if you go back and watch those films, they're amazing. The practical effects that were brought in in that time were just way ahead of its time cinematically. And so talk about just telling a story continuity wise, like all those things are great. And then on top of it, you have Sigourney Weaver, who is the GOAT, like the first woman action hero, like just a great character all around. Like I gave my daughter Ripley for her middle name because of that, because she's such a strong, courageous woman and who perseveres through so much. Like I love that about her. And again, it's just like a masterclass in how to build such a beautiful character in such like a scary and dark environment, which hats off to like David Fincher, James Cameron, Ridley Scott for creating that in the first place, for us to even have what we have in Romulus. So there's just like this back and forth of us. Like, I feel like I'm like, oh, I just need to like be grateful for what we have. Like there's some awesome characters in this film too, like with Tyler, the whole crew, like Haley Spaney, Isabella Merced, David Johnson, obviously, like we're talking about all you guys, and like it's if you ever listen to this episode, like y'all crushed it. You gave some awesome performances. Like even Bjorn, I was saying like that acid death he gets when the cocoon is coming out and the tail like stabs him in the eye. I'm just like, dude, we've never really seen someone die in that way, and that was just like horrifying, right? So anyway, I just bringing it back to that. There's like Patrick, I think you mentioned it. We're like these we're like hyper focused into this franchise. And so I think too, Jamie, you might have mentioned too, or Adam, we're like chasing this high that we got when we first saw these films. That's like who we are, and we can't like we're not just gonna like have a blind eye towards that. Like that's where we're coming from. And so like that's why these things really don't sit great with us, but we do recognize that this is such a powerful installment addition to this whole saga of films, and it's just like I'm just so happy that we're like along for the ride, and we're given the opportunities that we've had, and just like the story now, like I'm definitely excited to see like what Fede brings us next, you know.
Just to hop in a couple of things quick on that. I want to also second what you said about Spike Fearn, who plays Bjorn. I think he was given a really hard character, kind of a poorly written character, and I think he did a marvelous thing with it. And that character is very memorable and feels very real, even though he kind of exists only to die and to be disliked by everybody. Like it's still an interesting performance, and I think he does a good job. And also to everybody who's saying Archie Renault playing Tyler, again, like instantly great alien character. There's definitely like a kind of a Hicks undercurrent to him a little bit in a way that felt really nice. I think he plays this wonderful kind of mixture of being, capable and able to step up to the plate, but also being kind of gentle and knowing when to take a back seat, kind of like learning that as the film goes on. I think it's a really good performance. But I also want to give a shout out to Dan Ferlito, who's, one of our great friends, who sent me a video by this guy, Jason Pargin, who's an author who did this kind of analysis of Alien. That really spoke to me a lot about why I think we keep having strange experiences when new films come out. And he talks about how it's difficult because we have, as Adam, reluctantly said, a franchise right at this point, right? That's what it is. We have 7 movies. We have all this, subsidiary stuff. We have novels. It's a whole thing, right? And it's based on the premise of the original movie, which is a continual unraveling of mystery. So, Alien starts and we don't know anything that's happening. Like, I'm not even saying if you're in 1979 in a movie theater. I'm saying just now, if you're watching it for the first time, like what's going on with this egg? Like, why is he looking at it? What's inside? What's that going to do now? Now that it's lashed onto his face, what's going to happen next? Oh my God, something burst out of him. Where did that go? What does that mean? Oh, it grew into an alien. It's a continuing experience of mystery and of feeling afraid at that element. And that's something that was really potent in Alien, and you can never actually redo with the tropes that are in Alien because we already know the answers to them. So then Aliens kind of like plays it up a little bit, and it's like, well, what if this happens to a whole group of people? And what if there's, why are all the colonists in one place under this reactor? And then, oh, what's actually happening? Like, what happens when, you fight them with fire and blah, blah. So again, there's mystery, but even Cameron and Mike Dennis actually pointed this out, right? Like Ripley's line about like how many times you want me to tell you the same story. Like this is an example of a line that I think was Cameron saying, like, I can't tell you this a third time. Like you get it at this point. You get what the aliens are. You get why they're afraid of, these creatures, right? And then you have Alien 3, which works because it's so antithetical to everything else that's came before it that it feels fresh and it feels new and it feels different. But it also pissed everybody off because it was so different and because it was so there were no sacred cows, like we've talked about billions of times in this podcast. And ever since then, everything that comes out, we're trying to chase, as you have all said, that same high of like what's going to happen next. And these movies never take us to that same level again because they keep kind of relying on tropes that we're familiar with. I think part of why The Offspring felt really good for me is because that I did not see. I mean, I knew something was going to happen because she was pregnant. I did not think like a baby was going to come out. That was not something I was ready for. I thought we were going to get some really great body horror actually out of that with Kay. Like, I thought that something really scary was going to happen with her. So it was kind of a fake out to have it be a baby. And then for that first reveal, like Adam was saying, when we saw it, the audience was physically revolted by it. I mean, that is an all-time great Alien shot when it's in the doorway and it's fully grown and it's splayed out horizontally and it looks like it doesn't have a face. I felt that mystery again. I felt that moment of like, what the fuck am I looking at right now? And then the second it moves, I'm like, oh, that's what I'm looking at. And it has an inner jaw and it's got a tail and it's got these little dorsal tubule things coming out. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But there was that moment, there was that moment. And similarly in Covenant, there was that moment. The backburster sequence was that moment where I was like, what is happening? What am I looking at? And that's why I chase the high of Covenant all the time too. Because for me, that movie is all about taking me to that place, and an Alien takes us to that place in so many different ways, in so many different forms. And I think for us who are so accustomed to these movies, we sometimes want them to be able to be more successful with that than they actually are. And I think we're in this tight spot because we want them to surprise us and to give us mystery, but they're also being made by Hollywood studios who need to make money on their investment. And those two things I think are really hard to work with. But I think Fede does achieve it in a couple of places in this movie. And that's why I'm defending this film. I think it's a really good movie in a lot of ways. And I think Noah Hawley is well positioned to take us there a lot with his series. I have to say, not to move off topic, but just briefly, I'm a little disappointed that the xenomorph like XS121 has been so like highlighted in all that we've seen of it so far, because there was an alien on that horrible background that they had at the rat party. There was this alien that was in this little 5-second splash teaser thing that was going on during the Nuvi stuff in the movie theater. It's like definitely saying this is an alien thing featuring the xenomorph that and I kind of feel like I speak for all of us when I say I don't want that to be the case. Like I kind of hope this is a fake out, because there's obviously huge canonical issues with that, which we are not going to get into right now, but also because I want to be confused again. Like I want to not know what's happening. And Noah Hawley's really good at doing that with other established properties that we know. And I think, that could be a nice way. This could be kind of like our comfort food, Romulus, because it feels safe and it feels alien and it feels like it was made with so much love and care and respect and diligence, and like it feels right. But now I want to feel wrong. Like I hope Noah Hawley makes us feel wrong again,
To that point, first I want to say I think an unsung performance in Romulus is Isabel Merced as Kay. I thought she was fantastic. She essentially survives to the end of the movie. We don't really know if she's dead. We see the offspring, what seems to be suckling her. We don't really know what she's doing. She seems like she's fainted. We don't know if she's dead. But she makes it to the end of the film, and she's chased by these things. She's impaled in her shoulder or something and taken off to the hive. She's a really interesting performance that I really, really love. And she's not a lot of people are talking about Isabella Merced. And I think more people should. I think she has a fairly layered performance. She goes through a lot. I think the women in the film, Aileen Wu and Isabel Merced as, Navarro and Kay, they probably go through the worst of it. Like Spike Fern does die pretty horrifically, but the women die worse if Kay dies. But the women of color die way, way worse than anybody else. And it's excruciating. And it's always interesting. And I've had a hard time with horror because horror tends to torture and maim women primarily. And I have a real hard time with that because it's just going on and on and on and on and on. And I want something a little bit different. That being said, I want to kind of move on to just to speak for myself. I'm not chasing any high. I am not chasing any high from Alien. What I'm expecting is a new story. And I think my thing is we've seen an Alien movie since the beginning. Oh no, we're on a ship, something's loose. Aliens. Okay, we're in this facility and these things are loose. We got to get from point A to point B. Alien is from point A to point B. Alien 3 is different, but it's still similar where this thing is chasing these people and we got to kill it and it's running around point A to point B. Now, what it does, I think the contention with Alien 3 is that it kills off some characters people were really invested in. That's the problem people have with that movie. It's not that they have a problem with the setup. They have problems with the characters they killed off. And then you have Alien Resurrection, point A to point B, just a complete rehash. And then you have Prometheus, which I think dared to do something different. Now, it was fatally flawed by some horrible writing that just presented some of the worst characters in the franchise, the worst characters in the franchise. But the ideas were incredible. The engineers were absolutely incredible. It missed the boat. But I love, there was something there, and I think it's true for everyone from what I know, but I wanted to only speak for myself. After I saw Prometheus, it was just playing in loops in my head for days. I couldn't, even my partner at the time, he was like, I can't stop thinking about this movie. That's successful in terms of a new idea being presented. And then you have Alien Covenant, which then is, again, the Force Awakens of Alien, many beats of Alien, coming down a beacon, down on a planet, derelict, oh no, oh no, oh no, back in a ship, aliens chasing us, blah, 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 blah. So then you have Romulus doing those same exact things again. For me, what I would have always been interested in, and I want to quote Noah Hawley as best I can, I probably won't accurately quote him, but Noah Hawley said, when we're approaching a series about Alien, we can't do what everyone's done. He said, there's a movie coming out right now about people kind of running from point A to point B in space. My series has to be about something. I want an Alien film to be about something. As amazing and good time as Romulus is, it is the exact same thing we've seen over and over and over again. And that's my issue with it. I just wanted something new, just something else. And I get it in some ways, like, oh, bringing new people into the audience, into the fold. I get it in a way, but they just did that with Covenant. They just did that 7 years ago. So I'm a little confused by that, which is okay. And I don't have to understand everything. Decisions are decisions. If, Romulus is continually successful, it seems like it will be, that's really, really great. But I can't pretend, not that anyone's accusing me or asking me to pretend, but I can't pretend that Romulus is this whole new thing. It's not, it really isn't. But what's new in this, and I'm going to pivot back to what I said earlier, is this performance by this David Johnson, who played an android in a way we have never seen it before. We have never seen that in an Alien film. There's not a lot of mystery in Romulus. There are some mysterious things here and there. Not really a lot of mystery, but it is a fun roller coaster ride. And then you get off the ride and go to something else, and you forget about it. Not to say that we're going to forget about Romulus, because we're not. We're going to be talking about it for a long time. But I just want to really speak for myself that I am not chasing any high. I am not chasing any high from these movies. When I saw Alien 3, and Patrick mentioned this, I think it might have been offline, but I had seen Aliens over and over and over as a kid. And when Alien 3 happened, I was like, okay, here we are. I wasn't upset that Newt and Hicks were dead. I realized this is Ripley's story. This is more her story than anything else. And space is fucking brutal. And it kept her honest. And it felt authentic to the world, where you have this diabolical company using this very diabolical entity to do their bidding. And Ripley was the victim of that. It just felt honest to who she was. And people die, and especially in sci-fi films. So it really, really worked for me. And I am really excited to see what's next in terms of the story of Romulus and where it can go, and a story that Fede can tell that isn't going to be like anything we've seen before. So I just think it's important. It's important for me to really, I guess, identify what I'm expecting, and what I'm hoping for. And and I think, but what I have said over the years is I love the mystery, the atmosphere of Alien in all of the Alien films. Even I would say with Prometheus and Covenant, and in some respects Resurrection, maybe. What unfolds with the audience is unfolding with the characters. We don't know anything that the characters don't know. We're all experiencing this at one time. Romulus is a break from that. Romulus, then, it starts off that way, and then we have Rook coming in, explaining everything to us. That's never happened before. It was an interesting creative choice. I don't hate it. I don't love it at all. I think it was the wrong choice, but it was just different to hear this, oh, this, and then this, and then this, oh, that up there was this, and this is up here, this, and this is what you need to do here, and this is the directive, as opposed to the computer mother giving you some details here and there, and we're like, well, what does this mean? Well, we don't know. This seems this seems that. Well, what do we do now? Well, we don't know. That to me is far more engrossing and far more captivating than an exposition dump. But again, I think at its core, Romulus is a really, really fun film. It really, really is. And but but also I also want to make sure that I'm clear about where I am with this film.
It's funny you bring up Alien 3. After I had saw Romulus, I actually appreciated Alien 3 more after seeing it for how different it was. And I am not, I've come around a lot to Alien 3. I finally like it more than I do Resurrection, now that I'm a little bit older and seeing it finally. But yeah, it's funny that you say that about Alien 3 and how much it is different. So about the Offspring and seeing some things before, the first two times I saw the movie, I saw The Offspring and I'm like, I can't get the newborn out of my head from Resurrection. I'm just like, I can't believe we got another one of those. And when we were at the New York showing, when I met you guys and Kyle was there, we were talking about that. And he was like, imagine if you didn't see Resurrection and then because it plagues your image of that. And then I'm like, you're 100% right. And I'm like, without that movie, that wouldn't seem so bad to me. And then looking at that as I saw it the third time, I think it brought some of that wonder that you were talking about, Jamie, when you were like, the characters don't know what they're seeing and you don't know what you're seeing. Everyone's kind of like learning at the same time. And when the burst scene that was gruesome, which I loved, when the I guess like a little egg like popped out in the cryo tube and the umbilicus the cord got cut and she carried it over and she goes to blast it with the cryo gun and you see that it open up and you see the baby's face. And I think at that point she was confused on what she saw, and I know I was, and I think the rest of the audience was like, "What the hell is that thing in there?" And because of that hesitation, it kind of had gotten away from her, just because, am I about to like freeze a baby, or like, what is this thing? And then there's acid, and then it goes away, and then you're like, "What?" So from not liking that scene the first two times, and then talking a little bit with Kyle, he's like, try to get resurrection out of your brain. I'm like, okay, the offspring kind of works for me. It's weird. And then I didn't realize that the second time that it did look like it was breastfeeding from Kay, because she kind of like reaches in her shirt and has that like gook coming out and she's confused. And then it's like, yeah, it's very disturbing. And at the end I'm finally here for it now that I can make that separation.
I wanted to make a small comment about I was looking at the costumes throughout the film. I know I spoke a little bit with Carlos, the costume designer. I know there was so much work that went into these costumes, into breaking them down. There are a lot of callbacks that I really liked. Navarro wears like this Hawaiian shirt that's hardly even seen on screen, but I saw a photo of the shirt in proper lighting. It's a beautiful pattern. It's obviously like a callback to a Brett's Hawaiian shirt. She also wears like those cowboy boots, which is what Lambert wore. And I also think now that I see and look at it, Kay's costumes was very much like that. That overall was very much like a Newt costume. That's kind of what Newt wore. I was wondering if they were trying to like channel that character, through her. Yeah, but I think that overall the costumes made sense because these are, teenagers or young adults. It wouldn't make sense for them to be wearing, more elaborate military style costumes. I enjoyed that aspects. Some of the patchwork, the jacket that Tyler wore, but it was really a film about less about costumes, more about like cinematography and set design, which was, we've gone over this so many times about it. It just everything looked gorgeous, it looked real, it looked right.
Also, to your point, she was rescued like Newt was from the hive.
Right. I didn't think about that.
Quick comment on the costumes. I appreciated that Rain at the end, when she was about to get into the cryotube, was wearing what a young girl her age going from a mining colony to a spaceship would be wearing, which is like boxer shorts and a tee and nothing sexy. There was nothing that like, none of the characters were sexualized in any way, and I just appreciated that. She just looked like a normal, like a practical outfit that she would be wearing. I'm glad they didn't make any kind of nod to in that regard to, what Ripley wore in the first one. So I did appreciate that. I was looking at their costumes and everything they wore made sense. And I think that's one of the details that just makes it more believable as you're watching it, and nothing like stands out as, oh, why would they be wearing that?
I think it was to switch it up a little bit. It was nice to see the face huggers scary again. It's been a long time. I feel like they've been kind of thrown away. Even in some of the novels, it seems like, and the later prequels, they were trying to get rid of it as part of the life cycle. Even the chest burster to agree. It was nice to see the face huggers actually being used. That they're fucking terrifying. Crab spider thingies that want to impregnate you. Yeah, it's a little frightening. They're all skittering down the pipe. They kind of don't breathe scene when they're in the walking by them. That whole sequence, actually, from the facehuggers escaping to their ship crashing, was excellent. That whole sequence between the Xeno being birthed and then them walking through it was just a really well done sequence. It really had the theater focused, and it had me. By the time it was done, I was like, "Whew! All right, now what do we do?" It was just really good, solid action horror filmmaking. It was really one of my favorite. I mean, there's a lot of good separate parts of the movie. That part I really enjoyed. I thought it really brought that part of the Alien franchise back, whereas some of the other movies drove it away. So that was really cool to see.
To go off of what you guys were saying about the face huggers, I thought, and I know we saw a little bit of it in the trailer, but one of the images that really sticks with me from this movie is the face huggers all vying to get out between those doors. And it just looks like monster hands, like gripping it and pulling it open. That literally scares the crap out of me. And I remember when we saw it with Jude and Henry, they both, like, Jude got like really close to me and he was like, oh no, I could see him like shaking his head because of just the utter dread of even one of those things getting through. And then all of them get through and they have to just run as quickly as they can. Another image that I really like, there's a few images from the movie that are really like living in my brain. That's one of them, the one of the hands kind of coming through the door. And I know we kind of got a little glimpse of that. You guys did at Comic-Con and stuff, but that is one of the excellent images from the movie. The other, there's like two that go together. I loved in the beginning that there was absolute silence and space, and then the blackness of space kind of brings the ship into focus. And then I love at the end how Rain's escape is kind of going back into the blackness of space again, because I mean, I know it's a very common fear to be afraid of space, but I am definitely one of those people who is afraid of space. Just the idea of how vast it is and how both empty and incredibly full it is. So those images really stick out with me. And another thing I wanted to bring up is like, I just love that we had, going back to the life cycle of the creature, is we get to spend a lot of time with the face huggers, and we get to spend some time with the stage between the burster and the full xenomorph. And that is really cool and absolutely terrifying. I mean, that thing on the wall, I mean, there's a word that Patrick likes to use for it, but I'm not gonna say it. It's disgusting. And as a labor and delivery nurse, it's a little too real for me. But yeah, I think it's really awesome that we have a movie now where we unfortunately get to come across that stage between it's this little skittering worm with teeth and tiny baby arms to, oh my God, this thing is way bigger than I am and is about to stomp me down. So just a lot of really powerful imagery comes from this movie, and I'm really grateful for that.
Just as you were talking about it, I was thinking like there's some interesting, answers and questions raised by the treatment of xenomorph biology in this. One of which is that like we have absolute proof that they excrete things. That's something that's always been talked about and kind of debated about. Like, is the hive something that the drones are creating in aliens, or is this from something environmental? But in this one, we have Big Chap excreting something to create like a shell around himself as he's floating through space. Like that didn't, he didn't just bump into an asteroid or something, right? Like he created that, or his body created that somehow. And then likewise, that the vagina with a thorn in it stage, right, which is a Fede Alvarez quote when he was talking about this, that has to be excreted by the creature. That's the alien creating that as some sort of a pupal developmental stage, right? Which I think is so cool. And just to that end, in terms of like xenobiology, something that I love about this, although I agree it's kind of an entry level thing, it's also, it has a lot of things that only like extremely hardcore fans would pick up on, which I also love, and I think is important. I think it's nice to have expanded universe materials so all over this. So like we've talked a lot about isolation. I'm glad Micah brought that up. Like that is everywhere, between the generator and the safe station and the digitigrade legs that the alien has, to how heavy it sounds, like Stompy from Isolation, to story beats. It feels very, to a ship crashing in a decaying orbit, right? We have a station crashing into an ice field, which is fucking beautiful, as Andy pointed out. Like, my God. I mean, I've seen that on 3 IMAX screens now, and it is just some of the most beautiful imagery I've seen in an alien film. The bright white of that dust coming towards the ship, and then it starts to like tremor as it comes across. It's just gorgeous. But not only Isolation, also Alex White novels. And Alex, spoiler alert, is going to be on the show in a couple of days, and we're going to talk to them about this, because they texted me right after they got out of the movie the first night, and they said it was extraordinary, and they couldn't wait for us to see it so we could talk about it. And I think it's not only, of course, because some of their work is referenced, and obviously it's a really interesting movie that we're going to have a lot of fun talking about, but Alex White's term of plagiaris praepotens is mentioned in it. Of course, is mentioned by Rook, which kind of diminishes it a little bit. But that is like a deep cut thing that was in Alex. It's in the Cold Forge, and it's been in the RPG. It's been in a couple of other places, but it's that stage where it's what the facehugger is implanting into people. It's like a concentrated form of the black goo. I mean, that is like a nerdy deep cut, and it's said in the movie, which I love. And similarly, calling the creature XX121, that's something that it's anybody who's an Alien fan of any level knows it's just a constant battle talking about what this fucking thing is called, because everybody's like, it's not the xenomorph, it's not it means strange shapes. Like, we get it. Xenomorph is a classification for a type of extraterrestrial life that we don't have otherwise identified. There's other types of xenomorphs, so it's like it's always this back and forth. But in 2014, S.D. Perry wrote XX121 in the Weyland-Yutani manual, but report manual, which should be in everybody's bookshelf, I hope. And that was also brought in the novels, and then it started to kind of, propagate elsewhere. So people who are familiar with things like the RPG and the expanded universe now call it XX121. That's just sort of what we've been calling it. And to have like an alien film reference that like kind of fandom deep cut, again, it's really nice. It really has things there for very hardcore fans as well. And it has things there for non-hardcore fans that just like Alien. I mean, I think the Dippy Bird and the Cornbread in the beginning, like, I kind of roll my eyes a little bit at it, but I'm like, whatever. Like, it's comfort food. I get it. The game over on the screen that when Andy's playing, it's fine. It's a little member berry, whatever. That's not for us, is what I'm trying to say. That's for people who know the movies, but they're not like constantly talking about the movies. But there are things in there for people who are constantly talking about the movies, and none of the other films have done that. I'm sure people who are not into the expanded universe might have issues with that or think it's a little too obvious. But for me, like as somebody who has spent many late nights playing the Alien RPG, for example, with friends like Jamie and Christian, that was a powerful thing to experience.
My ears definitely perked up when I heard the I'm gonna butcher the name up, the what was it, Patrick, the Prioris Prepotence thing. When I heard that from the Cold Forge novel, it was so nice to hear. I'm like, oh, okay, that's Cold Forge, which is that is probably my favorite. And there was a lot of things from that, like even when Kay's character stabbed herself, I was like, okay, are we gonna get like a blue Marsalis monster from this? I'm like, what are we getting? And then I'm like, and once we saw the offspring, I was like, was that what that thing was? It was like, was it when I imagined in my head, I'm like, okay, maybe we went to the baby instead. I'm like, there's so many different ways that can go. Like what you're saying about the hibernation thing, like seeing that extra thing of the life cycle. Um, that I feel like adds so much to a video game standpoint. Like after I saw some of the early stuff for I think Rogue Incursion, the VR game coming out, I'm like, could you imagine, or even Isolation, if you were walking somewhere and you saw one of those pods just like on the wall, you're like, oh, and now you're just like waiting. Like you imagine if you're like trying to like imagine you're playing as like K or you're in a VR setting where you're like you have like nothing and then you just see this thing start to like hatch and you gotta like try to get away. Like that seems terrifying and I feel like it even like there's a lot that adds as well as the beginning sequence where the big chap is actually alive and blown out into space, which makes me think if the queen's alive from aliens, and I didn't really think about that till a couple days ago. So is there just some like giant queen from aliens floating in outer space? So like I don't know if I like that or if I don't like that or not. I'm not sure.
Well, she's probably floating around somewhere in a huge asteroid cocoon.
I know we were talking about like what we'd love to see, and I do just want to echo everyone's love of Jackson Star. I could have taken a whole half hour of Jackson Star. I would love to have seen more. Those moments you don't see a lot in Aliens. I loved what Fede did and his team to create that. It echoes a little bit of Hadley's Hope, something wildly different at the same time. I loved that world. I wanted more. I wanted just to, and the woman in that place that Rain goes to kind of talk about, I'm leaving now. I've done my work, and that kind of, well, now you need to do more work because the company has more expectations. That, oh my God, like that was just everything. It was everything. It was a place I'd never been in alien film. And just hats off to, again, Fede and his co-writer and the crew for really bringing something to life that was just a wonder. It was a wonder. Like my eyes just can't stop looking everywhere. And it felt so authentic. I've not felt this. I've not felt the world of Alien this lived in since probably Alien 3, but Alien, where it's that feels like a real world somewhere. I would love to visit it. Well, maybe not.
So speaking of Jackson Star, what do we think of them just being able to leave as easily as they do? And no one really, I mean, I know there was that random guy who noticed. Do you think they let them just go on purpose because they knew something had happened on the station? Then they're like, maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe like they kind of let them go as guinea pigs to see what actually happened. I kind of took that the second time.
I think so. I think that was up there to experiment on them down there with all the disease. There's no sun, perfect rats, the perfect guinea pigs. I didn't pick it up till the third viewing. I went, oh, those motherfuckers. That's why it was up there. That's why I didn't care it went up there. That's what they wanted to begin with. Go find your cure. And then go back down, bring it, share it. Go right ahead. Be our little petri dish. Go right ahead. It took me to the third viewing to put two and two together. Like, Whalen Utani, you sons of bitches. Yeah. They truly give zero fucks.
It's interesting that none of the people aboard, like Kay, Tyler, Bjorn, like even Rain, nobody even notices that they kind of sneak through. And I wonder if it's like to let the moment land where Rain gets to see the sun for the first time, because I think that moment is really important for her as a character and for Andy as a character. But it is interesting. I remember we were talking, Jamie, about that, like the fact that they just kind of sneak through. They casually just get to leave whenever they want to. I did notice that the first time and the second time I saw the film, and I was like, I wonder, like, why is it so dangerous for them to do that if no one's going to stop them? Why isn't everybody doing that if they're so desperate down there? You know what I mean? Why are they the ones that figured out to do it? I feel like the film could have done with maybe a line or two about them being a bit nervous about being caught. You know what I mean? Maybe it could have done with something like that for realism, but I guess like major fans like us would know Wayland Yutani probably wants them to go up there and do it. But I think it might have been good for general viewing for a line or two. Like, oh, are you sure this is okay? Like, is this the right time to do it? We have to do it exactly this time, or otherwise we'll get monitored or caught.
Just super quick, to Andy's point and Micah's point and everybody's point, we were talking about the canary image, right? About how the last thing that they see, like, do you want to spend the rest of your life here? They see the canary that the miners are bringing down. And, if anybody doesn't know what that metaphor is, canaries historically were used in mines to test if they were poisonous or not. So if the canary died, they would know that, it wasn't safe for people. That has to be intentional. I feel like that's Fede, or telling us the company is doing this. Like, the company knows that they're going to get that intercept. The company knows they're trying to get away. The company knows that she's trying to get off world because her parents died and blah blah blah. The company's going to give her another 12,000 hours. They're going to push her into this position where she feels no other way to go other than up. And she goes up, and they find the coal mine the company was looking for. Like, I really, that Andy, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's been one of the plot points that's really bothered me a lot. Because it's like, how would they not see the Corbellan taking off? And like, why would it not be a big deal? But it wouldn't be a big deal if they were complicit. Like, if that was the whole idea, Yeah.
Patrick, so you're saying it's almost like a double, it's like a double metaphor almost. So when Wayne's looking at the canary, she's like, oh, I don't want to die like my parents. But then also Fede might be using that as they're the canaries going up to test the ship almost. That is, I'm so glad you guys brought that up. Not once did I ever think that I thought it was weird that they just left, but I was just like, okay, that's just to move the story along. Not to think that Wayland Yutani was like, oh, maybe we'll just let this one group see this ship floating up here who probably wants to get out of here, and then extend their hours, if that, too, to not get the permits to force them up there.
In addition to that, if I remember correctly, Rain was up until then they had like two. Part of the population was doing agriculture. The other part of the population was doing mining. Rain was agriculture, and now they switch her. Oh, these next 1,200 hours you're going to be mining, which is like, absolutely horrible. Like, add to the to the weight.
The issue though here might be, like, to Dave's point, yeah, maybe the company's letting them through, but when we get up to the Renaissance station, we first hear this station is going to crash into these rings in 36 hours. So if that's the case, all of that stuff would have been disintegrated. None of it would have reached Jackson Star. So I don't know if that really, really works, because I had issue, as we talked about, when they take off. They don't hear from air traffic control. What are you guys doing? What are you doing with the ship? The ship is a hauling ship. Why do you have it? You're not licensed for this. We hear none of that. We should have heard something. There should have been some attempt, even if the company was like, yeah, let's let them go. We should have heard at least let's pretend that let's pretend that they're not doing what they should be doing, So when they get there, like, the ruse is like, the people who are partaking in the ruse, whether it's air traffic control or a Wayland Yutani operative or a group on Jackson Star, they're like, so say they're taking off, and air traffic control says, what are you guys doing? Why are you in this ship? And then someone at Wayland Yutani says, let him go, let him go, let him pass. That would be a little bit more believable to me. But because we know that station is going to crash in 36 hours and blow up any last thing, I'm not sure if I buy it. And also, you see in the beginning of the film, that awesome opening where that ship is coming in and, scanning everything, and it brings in, the fossilized big chap or whatever. Why wouldn't that same company also go to the Romulus station and send in a probe to grab all that stuff? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they grab some of the most important matter or biological matter to them? Yeah, that's a thing. I don't know. I don't have any answers to it. But the idea that Wayland Yutani is going to just let them do it, that's a little too easy for me. That's just where I'm at right now. But who knows?
They were just too far away, and it was, shit went down really fast. That's how I saw it. And I also thought that Tyler was like the captain of that crane ship. When we spoke with Matt Savage, the concept artist, it was his instructions were to design it as like a crane cockpit. So that's basically like a crane ship, which was maybe like cheap, just a lot of those around. They're just flying all over the place all the time, and they just hitchhiked with the rest of the makeshift crew, and just kind of went off screen. That's kind of how I saw it.
I think it's also worth pointing out we don't know the exact timeline of how, since shit went down with Big Chap. Like, I get the sense that prior to that, Renaissance Station was in a very stable, position in the sky, and everything was all good. And then it seems like everything that went wrong kind of just went wrong. And so it could be, to Adam's point, they didn't have time to scramble anybody to go up there, but there was, these kids who had access to a ship. Maybe, I don't know. Again, it's fun to kind of like think this through.
I think too, they said they only had 9, or they needed 9 years to travel anywhere else outside of Jackson Star. So if no one had cryotubes, which no one on those ships would, maybe air traffic control would be like, okay, the ship's lifting off, they can't go anywhere without any equipment to do so. So that could be something too why they wouldn't ask.
But it's company property.
That's true too.
I love that this makes us, kind of like a measurement for a good film is if it makes you think about it. I've seen, so many, it's rare for a film to make me think about. So there's so much other aspects that we didn't even touch about, like the narcissist or, the relationship between Bjorn and who's the father. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of Easter eggs that we didn't even touch on. And I love that it makes us think and debate these things. And, it's kind of a measurement of a good film.
Well, lucky for all of us, this is, just the first of many episodes we will be devoting to talking about this alongside all the other films too. So, I remember in the lead up to this movie coming out, we had a lot of conversations where I kept because for some reason I was fixated on this idea. I kept saying come this Friday, we will never know life without Alien Romulus in it. And that's it. Now we live life that has, for good and for bad, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, we have Alien Romulus, and we're married to it now. So we need to be able to deal with it and have these conversations. And I think it's really exciting. Like I said, we're recording again in 2 days with Alex White, and we have many other things on the horizon. So I think probably for the sake of this not going past 2 hours, because it's very late on the East Coast, we probably are going to try to kind of pull towards closing here. But this has been great, and the first of many more to come.
I just want to say one more thing. Get a little mushy, I guess you could say. Jamie, even though Ryan's not on this, you guys, I can't believe it, 7 years ago, you pulled me from a blog, which I wrote one article, and decided, oh, let's invite you on a podcast. And I never thought my introverted, shy ass would be still recording a podcast, still enjoying it, and having my own 7 years later, because you crazy motherfuckers took a chance on me. I went from can't talk, now you can't shut me up. I was terrified to go on video with you guys. Now we just did a record for another podcast on YouTube. Who would have thunk it? Thanks for taking a chance on me, because now I can't imagine my life without recording a podcast, and I really, really enjoy it. So thank you guys. It's a pleasure, and a pleasure meeting you all for the Alien in the City. Good times, and most importantly, good beers. I wish we all could have hung out longer, but hopefully it'll be a time again sometime soon.
I also wanted to say, to take a minute and thank all the people who worked on this film. I wanted to say, a huge, Fede was tasked with an enormous, difficult undertaking. I think he delivered something that will be in my collection of Blu-rays that I will cherish forever. It would be another Blu-ray that I would take out and watch, and for a fun ride. And this is really a huge thank you to Fede and his assistant Amy, which I know is also listening. So I hope they listen, and they hear about there's a lot of criticism, but also a huge thank you for them and everything they did for the fandom. I guess this is an incredible project to take on and to deliver such a fun, incredible film.
Yeah, I want to second your sentiments, Adam. I'm loving that Fede created a movie that's allowing us to all get excited about, going back to see movies again. Like that, since we've all lived through COVID, like kind of died away, right? And I know it's slowly been coming back with Dune and Top Gun and all the other movies that have come out in the past year and a half or so. But it's just for us as Alien hyper fans, this is just such a beautiful, magical experience. And I'm like excited. I'm excited to I was excited to come home and like plan viewings with some of my work buddies. And there's a neighbor friend of mine. Him and I go to a lot of movies together, and we'll just like sit around and talk about movies together. So like I'm excited to take those guys and show them why I love this franchise so much. And hope they enjoy it just as much as well. And so like that right there is just like the machine to like bring people together and enjoy a piece of art and to talk about it afterwards is just something I feel fills my heart and feels so excited to be a part of. And so yeah, I just want to thank the whole team. And again, like just to shout out like Nick and Dane. It was so great to like meet you guys at the premiere and just chat with them on their ideas, like art direction going into in what made it into Romulus. It's so cool. So yeah, and just Gogel, Mario, like everyone who met us out in New York, that was just such a beautiful time. I've never done that, like I said, for a movie before, and it was great. Patrick, obviously, thank you so much, Micah, for like hosting us and like letting us crash and really take over the Green household. But yeah, Adam, to see you again, obviously, Xander, Andy, and your family. Oh my God, meeting everyone. That was just so beautiful. So yeah, I'm super stoked to keep talking about this film. Like it's really a lovely piece of work. And so yeah, I can't wait, you guys.
Hey man, I have one more sentence to say really quick. This morning, I had a friend of mine who was going to see Romulus tonight with his 10-year-old. And he was like, like my 10-year-old's like super into horror right now. He really loves Alien 3 in particular. He really wants to like get deeper into this stuff, which I was like, that's a cool 10-year-old. And he's like, can you recommend some episodes, for us to play on the way there? And I was looking for the first episode about this from 2022. We recorded this little episode that said Fede Alvarez in talks to direct a Hulu film about Alien. And it's crazy. I was looking at that episode. I was like, we had no idea what was coming back then. Like how much our lives would change. Like going to Comic-Con, going to the premiere, getting together in person with all these incredible people, having our families meet each other, driving to the airport 9 times in a row in a week to make sure everybody was getting in safe. Like all these stories that we have now, the germs of that were all the way back in 2022. And so my last thing I just want to say quickly is there's problems with this movie, but there is not a single frame in this film that is not suffused with love. And I mean that in a really true way. You can pause any shot in this movie, and there is so much craftsmanship and detail and thought. So even when the movie has issues, and it has issues, and that's fine. I don't want to have to qualify myself every time I talk about it by saying that, but I will for a while because we live in a world where everybody wants to jump on bandwagons. The movie has issues. It doesn't mean that it's not made with incredible love and care and attention. And I want to say every moment of this summer has also been suffused with love for all of you on the call tonight, listening all over the world right now, our friends who helped make the movie, which is a surreal thing to even be able to say, and our friends who went to see it with us. All those people, we are in this together, and it's been a really memorable, one of the most memorable moments of my entire life has been this entire summer. So thank you.
And I think lastly, I just want to say, I said to all of you who were there with us, if nothing else, Romulus has brought us together. And that to me, like, obviously we're going to go see the film together, but I was most excited to spend time with you guys because you guys are my family, truly, truly. Like, my family is mostly online these days because I live in LA by myself. So I was really, really grateful for that. I was grateful to meet Dave Gogel in person. We've been friends for like 8 years now. We've been talking for years.
Finally.
Yeah, to meet him and to talk with him. And we have a lot of memories. We've been through a lot as friends, as podcasters. It's been great. But I'm just really proud of the show. And I had dreams of where I wanted the show to be. Like I remember when I first started Perfect Organism, which is coming up on its 10th anniversary in February, by the way. When I started it, I remember going to this one podcast Facebook page and had 30,000 followers. I was like, oh my God, I would love to just have 10,000 followers. And here we are, the shit. And I mean that in the best possible way, not with an ego, but with just pride. We're the best and biggest show there is in terms of the Alien show. My friend Louis, when I was at the screening in Hollywood, I went to the concession stand to get some popcorn, and Louis, who I've been friends with for a while, it's another story, but he introduced me to some of his Hollywood elite friends. Louis, the director, like Fast 10 or whatever, and he was like, "This is my friend Jamie, and he is the host and the founder of the official Alien podcast." That's how he introduced me, and I was like, "Wow." Look at us. Look at us. And this show is not this show because of me. It's this show because of everyone. And we became who we are because of Dave Gogel. You were aboard for a while. And Brian Zaid was aboard for a while. And Peter Haight, who's my first partner in 2015. The show is where we're at now. And then Patrick came along and everything just coalesced. And we became better and better and better. And I'm just so thankful for all of you. Like, this show would not be what it is now without all of you. So don't fucking go anywhere. And I just really want to thank all of you guys for all you do every day in our chats, the posting, fielding emails and messages, and our arguments, our disagreements, our joys and our sorrows. Like, this is really just, it's everything that I want it to be. And to be at this point now where the studio is reaching out to us saying, hey, we know who you are, we love who you are, and we're opening this door and this door and this door for you. I mean, you can't get better than that. So thank you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
That's awesome. Good night.
Hello, this is Michael McCullough, and I just wanted to give a quick 90-second quote and take on what I thought of Alien Romulus. I saw it last night. I'll do this very quickly, but I have tons and tons of other thoughts, but I'll try to break it down fast. A few of the pros that I found from the movie. First of all, the people. Absolutely relatable. Liked the characters, was involved with them, really could attach my feelings towards them, unlike the previous prequels, they were very unrelatable. These characters you felt something for at different points in it, and you really got behind, especially the main two characters. Really enjoyed them a lot. The setting, I thought it was very cool to see the actual ins and outs of the colony, basically like Hadley's Hope, get to see the inner workings of it, what it was like for the people, when the setup, the dark, dingy, kind of futuristic world in itself, which I thought was fantastic because we never really got to see that in Aliens. So that was very cool. Another thing, the movie absolutely makes you hate Weyland-Yutani, and you start to understand why it was such a corrupt and, evil run business that was money first and foremost. People were expendable. People were secondary. You really got a feeling of hating them in this movie, especially the way they were towards the miners, the employees, the people. They basically owned them as, you were there, you signed a contract, they owned you, and you couldn't do anything. It was basically like being in jail with the proposal from them as you were a valued part of their building. So I really thought that was very cool. The comics, I thought this movie was the closest to the Dark Horse comics that I grew up with. Anybody that's in those comics know the many different ways that Weyland-Yutani would try to set up these little secretive labs and try to do experimenting and stuff like that. And to see that in full force was really cool. More on that. But the cons, you know what? To be honest with you, I'm over the black goo. I know we started that in Prometheus and then into Covenant, but I'm really done with that arc. I like the way they went about getting it, though, and it wasn't directly like, hey, we have a vessel and we're going to use what's in this to do all kinds of experimentation. I like that, the way they derived it. But I'm just kind of done with that. And the other thing is the CGI. I don't think that it was needed or was very good done on Ash. I still thought it was awesome just to see his likeness again. I know for a fact my brother went with me. My brother's watched the movies but is not into them as much as I am. But it was very cool that when he saw Ash, he knew who that character was. And I think that was very cool for someone who's not very into the storyline or the movies. But to recognize him, I thought really brought somebody like him in. And I knew he was like over ecstatic because he could make connections from Alien. So those are just a couple of the thoughts I had. Like I said, I got many, many more, but I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to voice some of our stuff. Thanks, guys.
So my thoughts on Alien Romulus are, it mostly was a good movie. They had some amazing practical effects they used on the alien and the face huggers. I mean, those were just great. I loved most of the throwbacks to the previous movies where they had picked up Big Chap and he had kind of cocooned himself out in space, and they opened that up and were experimenting on him. I thought that was a great idea. Overall, it was pretty good. It was scary. It was intense. They kind of dropped the ball with, throwing in, the cheesy lines from the movies, like, get away from her, you bitch, and all that. I mean, it was kind of enjoyable, but it was cheesy. And then they came across that android rook that looked like Ash from the first one, and they couldn't even get a simple face swap done. It's like, how do you make a movie with that much money and you can't do a simple face swap? Well, anyways, thanks, guys.
Hey, Perfect Organism team. Thanks for doing this. Thoughts on Romulus? Thought there was a lot of really good stuff in the movie. I thought it really looked and felt like an alien movie, which I loved. I didn't really care for the Ash Rook thing. I didn't think it looked very good. It just kind of looked kind of cheesy. I don't know if maybe the technology's just not there to make that look great or not yet. And then just some of the beats from the previous movies, the same lines used, just was kind of a groan moment. Get away from her, you bitch. I mean, I don't know. It just worked for me once, in Aliens, and I didn't need to see that again. I didn't want to see the same movies I had already seen, and I felt like it took bits of all of those previous Alien movies and just kind of smashed it into one. Overall, I liked it, enjoyed it. I'm going to see it again. I'll buy it when it comes out on a physical disc as well. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, just a quick little part 2. Forgot to mention that I thought the acting was really good. I liked Kaylee Spaney's character and really enjoyed Andy, the android, as well. He was a lot of fun to watch.
I just saw Alien Romulus 2 hours ago, and I can say it's definitely an 8 out of 10 for me. I would have given it a 9 out of 10, but there was one nitpick I had with the movie, which was towards the end, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone. There's one little nitpick I had, and I think a lot of Alien fans will agree with me on this nitpick. But other than that, the film was amazing, well cast. Special effects were amazing, and the practical effects, obviously, of the xenomorphs and the facehuggers, etc. So my final review is 8 out of 10. I highly recommend Alien fans to go to see it.
Hey, Perfect Organism. Thank you for allowing us to give you our opinion here. On Alien Romulus, I gotta say that I'm not as pleased with it as I was hoping I was going to be, minus the first act, which I did really like on the colony, and just kind of having that perspective was really neat. But I just felt that it repeated a lot, and there were just too many Easter eggs, nods to the other movies, even, as far as using some of the same iconic quotes that I just really wasn't interested in. I would have loved to see more of the critical storyline, being just part of that in between the Alien and Aliens movies. But I just thought that it was more of an entertainment flick than really giving us more meaningful content in the story. So that's my opinion. Thanks for taking a moment to listen to it, and good luck.
So just back from watching Romulus, and kind of how I felt after watching Prometheus and Covenant, which were the first films I got to see at the cinema. Kind of, I don't know what to think. I'm underwhelmed. It's such a big build-up. It looked amazing. The world was great. I kind of didn't really give a shit about the characters. I mean, the actor who played Andy, he was amazing. He's the only kind of person I rooted for. Everyone else I didn't really give a shit about. Kind of just, I don't know, it's just a thing with modern films today. Just kind of feels like you're watching actors, whereas in the first three, even Resurrection, kind of you're absorbed in that world. You believe in the characters. Ian Holm or Ash or Rook, I was so excited at first to see him. It was amazing. And then we seen too much of him. We really did. I just kept thinking about the CGI. He starts going on about the black goo. Fucking hell, the black goo. I didn't want any references to Prometheus or Covenant. Not at all. And then we got the monster at the end. I don't want any more monsters. Face huggers and xenomorphs are enough for me. I'm probably going to go watch it another 2 or 3 times to have a proper opinion, but that's my first thoughts. Love you, bye.
Hey, Perfect Organism, Peter out of Atlanta, and just giving you a quick response to your Facebook post and allowing your listeners to send a quick voicemail, which is really cool. But end of the day, this movie just fell flat for me. I think I figured it out. I think this movie is continuing to fall in a death spiral that it seems it's just impossible to get out of in the franchise. It can't reinvent fear the way the original or even Aliens did. I remember seeing the movie in '79, and then I saw Aliens on the premiere here at Atlanta, special engagement for that, and just really fell in love with just the fear that it drove. But this movie just had too many member berries that pulled me out of it. The music score, I think one of you mentioned that it was just too much. Every second had music score, and that was a bit, just took me out of it. Ian Holm, what was that? And then just the same scenes happening over and over again in terms of chasing down hallways and a monster in the corner, and this was jumping out. And how many times can Andy be on the ground lingering and just flailing around, not being able to get himself up? It just was just too repetitive for my taste. Anyways, here's to another Blade Runner, maybe. I don't know.
Just like everybody else, I agree that the settings and effects, like seeing the active colony, were fantastic. I loved things like the zero gravity stuff that really mixed things up and was new. The creatures were actually scary and the effects were amazing, like the original Big Chap. I always thought that the aliens in Aliens, the movie, weren't very scary, and in this they made them terrifying. There were too many minor callbacks. I hated the character Bjorn, and I loved it when he died. That's partially because I did not like the actor at all. I think he was badly cast. I know that there are people who are moaning about Rook, the synthetic, but synthetics are mass-produced, so of course we should see duplicates, and I actually think that makes the setting work even better when you see more of the same ones. And finally, I love that they introduced that stuff from the prequels, like the pathogen, because it was a great horror idea and I always thought it can be used so much better, and they used it to make a horrible creature, which is awesome. And of course Wayland Yutani would want to use it to make better human slaves effectively. So not a perfect film, but pretty awesome.
As much as I wanted to love Alien Romulus, I was very disappointed. I knew this was not going to be as good as Alien or Aliens. I mean, which other movie in this franchise has? I mean, none of them have. So my expectations were fairly low. But what I got was nothing original. It just felt like a rehash of what we had seen in other installments in this franchise, and they were on the nose and not even trying to do something different. But I will say that the visuals and the practical effects were good.
Hi guys, my name's Phil. I just watched the film last night, and honestly, overall, I thought it was fantastic. I really loved it. There are a few things wrong with it, of course. The final bit with that alien-human hybrid thing, whatever it was, that could all go in the bin because it was just unnecessary. I thought Kaylee acted well, quite well throughout it, but we just didn't need it, did we? And then the Rook situation was interesting. I get why they did it. I thought it was a good idea, to be honest. I just thought it was badly done. The CGI just did not hold up at all. I thought if they would have used, messed his face up more and then used animatronics, something like Bishop in Alien 3, I thought they would have gotten away with that. But yeah, the CGI was just rubbish. But apart from that and a couple of other minor things, really, I thought it was a good film. There were some really good action sequences. I thought it was a good story overall, and I thought it was a solid entry into the universe.
Hey guys, Dave Turner here from Harpenden, England. Just checking with Romulus thoughts. That was a lot. I guess 36 hours on, I just can't really shift the film from my head, which is such a different experience to the one that I had with Covenant. I was just kind of speechless at the end, really. And I found myself sort of really oscillating between hating and loving the film. So I don't know what Fede would say about that. He said if we didn't love it, he wanted us to hate it. But I kind of feel both of those feelings at the moment. But he'd probably love that I have strong feelings about the film. But so what did I love? I loved the world building, the big chap. That gave me chills, the intro when he was being hauled in. I thought it was done really well. And Andy and Rain, they were just both great. Andy particularly, as has been spoken a lot, he was absolutely top notch. And The Offspring, that was creepy as hell. I can't wait to see that again. But man, oh man, oh man, those damn member berries. I don't think I need to say too much about them. They just broke my immersion completely. They were just too much. And I just need to see the film again to see if that's going to bother me in the long term. But yeah, basically I came out exhilarated, confused, frustrated. So much to unpack. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Hope you guys aren't so deflated like you sounded after the mini-sode, but can't wait to hear your thoughts. Stay frosty, everyone.
This is Chase Kubo. So the good stuff, it's really extremely fun. It's a thrill ride. The design and cinematography was so beautiful for the fans of the franchise. Also very accessible to general audiences. Creative and unique ideas, from cinematography and all facets of design to the writing and execution of scenes and pieces. It's actually pretty scary. I love the usage of elements from the books, comics, and prequel films. Specific scenes, moments, plot mechanisms that felt like a mix of thrill rides at a theme park and video games. Characters were mostly really well done. The soundtrack, I think it's rather effective. This score was like a combination of everything Wallfish. The xenomorphs were really well realized, designed, and deployed in the film mostly. There were a lot of iconic shots of the creature. I may never forget mine or the audience's reactions when a certain thing shows its fully grown face in the fourth act. Some of the hero shots of the xenomorph were almost a little too disconnected. There was a scene closer to the end, had the xenomorphs kind of not be as effective as they were. They did it because, the protagonist has some plot armor. The plot, the structure, certain lines, and certain characters were straight up copy and paste from the original 4 movies. And this is actually even more upsetting to me because Covenant did a lot of this back in 2017. A little unfortunate that one creature design went so far in the direction of something we've seen previously done. Way more good than bad. I really, really, really love this movie, even though there are some complaints. It is incredible. I'm super happy.
Hey guys, this is Sam from Olympia, Washington. Love the podcast. First want to say that I'm excited to finally see this movie so I can get back to newer episodes of the podcast because I didn't even watch any trailers for the movie. I wanted to be completely surprised. And I was not let down at all. It had so many nods to the previous films. The action was awesome, super intense, super scary. I loved how much of Geiger's original work was brought back into this without putting any spoilers out there. That hallway scene with the rebirth was absolutely incredible and made me incredibly happy. I think the only thing I didn't like about the movie was Rook and how they animated that character. I feel like they could have gone the Bishop in Alien 3 route and been much more successful with it. And the creature at the end was a little bit too newborn engineer kind of thing, but still absolutely scary and terrifying. It's a 7 out of 10 for me, and probably ranks number 3 out of the whole franchise for me, though I celebrate every movie just as equally and I love them all. So thank you guys. Love your podcast. See you later.
Hi, it's Aiden from Sweden here again. Having not seen any of the trailers apart from the original teaser, seeing the Nostromo wreckage was a huge shock to me. And when we started seeing what was going to be Big Chap, I was taken aback that the theories were true. It was a little on the nose, but also great at the same time. The world design was an amazing love letter to the originals and absolutely what we've been waiting to see for all this bloody time, Ridley. With that said, it was kind of like the Star Wars TV shows where they expanded on everything, but I didn't feel like Jackson's Star, for instance, had a lot of depth. The cassette futurism was, of course, amazing, but it had like a kind of less retro and much more high-def vibe than the originals. The character of Bjorn, he was really one-dimensional, and I would have loved to see him have his redemption by bonding with Andy instead, trying to survive, and in turn replace the character of Tyler that also was a little shallow. David Johnson has rightfully been praised by many for his performance. However, I have not seen so much mention of the fact that his character was created as a subservient being in an already oppressive society being exploited by predominantly white people. I think there are themes there that are a lot of unnoticed depth. My jaw literally dropped as soon as I saw Rook's silhouette, and sure, it didn't look amazing, but I like to see it as an homage to how they clumsily cut from the prosthetic Ash head in the original to Ian Holmes' head instead. And of course, I literally laughed out loud as soon as I saw the newborn, whatever it's called. Of course, Fede is gonna go out with a bang, you know, if he's making his own Alien movie. Of course, I was also the only one that laughed in the cinema. I never had any hate at all towards the actors' ages. However, I did find them afterwards to be a bit too handsome. They kind of like lacked the working class faces of the originals. Lastly, actually, the only thing that I didn't like about the movie in general was that they repeated the one-liners, and I started cringing as soon as I heard "Game over, man." And instead of saying "get away from her, you bitch," which was terrible, they just missed a great opportunity to put in a dad joke instead. Come on. Also, please, the link to Prometheus, no, my Alien, I don't want it to have anything to do with the prequels. Please, no. I'm just gonna close my eyes when that scene comes up next time. Anyways, that was it for me. Adios!
To find out more information about Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast, please go to www.perfectorganism.com. If you would like to support the show, please go to www.perfectorganism.com/support. Thank you.